Good morning, my YouTube viewers. It is Palestine. It's Sunday morning, and I am just getting ready to go to church. And since it's normally I would wear a t-shirt with this dress, but since it's such a hot day, I'm not going to wear the t-shirt. And tomorrow I'll wear the dress to work, and I'll wear the t-shirt under the dress because obviously it's probably not appropriate for me to be showing so much of my shoulders and everything at work. So I've had a week off. It wasn't a particularly good week because I have made videos to let you know about my week, and then I also made videos about Dr. Jessica Taylor's book, Click, Stalk, Destroy, and how it related to my life. But what I wanted to talk about this morning was I wanted to talk about an incident that is quite perplexing to me. And I don't know if this incident has anything to do with the deep state or if it has anything to do with a simulation that we're living in, because a lot of people believe that we're living in a simulated reality. But I just wanted to talk about it, and you can draw your own conclusions. And this was also during the time that I had been harassed out of my job at Foster Wheeler, but I was still being harassed by Foster Wheeler after I had been harassed out of my job at Foster Wheeler. And since it was such a traumatic time for me, I'm not sure. I know Foster Wheeler had something to do with it. It had something to do with hacking into my telephone and sending me fake messages. And I'm pretty sure that Foster Wheeler paid people to get my phone number. And then when they paid these people to get my phone number, then they would send me fake messages because I was very isolated. I was all on my own, and I was very isolated. And so I'm just going to tell you the story, and you can think about it, and you can come to your own conclusions. But more than 20 years ago, when I was working at Thames Water as a temp, and I was doing debt recovery, and I was also working as a finance assistant, but I was only there as a temp, I met this woman called Omu. But I'm not going to give her any identifying information except to say that she was from an African country, and she had been living in France with her husband, and then somehow or other her and her husband made it to the UK, and she had fertility problems, so she was trying really hard to have a baby, and it was difficult. And then, so I met her, and I befriended her. I mean, we weren't really good friends, but I befriended her. And then one time I met her in town, and we met in town, and she knew some things about my personal life, that I had confided in her some things about my personal life, so she knew that. And then I got in a big fight because one day my boyfriend were picking on me. And I just told my boyfriend at the time, he was my Scottish boyfriend, that I didn't want him to come along because she and my boyfriend were picking on me. And I felt very uncomfortable about that. And so I told my boyfriend, he's not my boyfriend anymore, that I didn't want him to come along when I met her because I didn't feel comfortable with them picking on me. And then, so basically, she did actually get pregnant after a long time. she did actually get pregnant. And then so I left Thames Water basically because they got rid of all the temps. And since I was a temp, I left Thames Water, and she left Thames Water too. And so we sort of lost touch. And then I went and got that job at Foster Wheeler, the job from hell at Foster Wheeler. I was harassed out of my job at Foster Wheeler. Well, what had happened was I had not a very good doctor's appointment with this doctor called Omi, and I actually complained about Omi because she was telling me that she could make me take drugs if she wanted to, and I was very distressed about this. And then within a day or two, I saw Omu at the bus stop across from the Prudential building. And so I saw Omu, and it said I said, oh, because I was alone. I had no friends. I was living in this country all alone, all by myself. I'd been harassed out of my job. The intention was to get me to harm myself because they couldn't harm me, because if they harmed me, then a police investigation may have tracked back to them. So they couldn't harm me. So they were trying to get me to harm myself. And so I saw Omu at the bus stop, which was strange. And I said, hello, how are you? And I was so lonely and everything. And I said, well, let's meet for a coffee. And then I said, let me give you my number. She says, oh, no, I've got your number. And then so basically then she texted me, but I think it was people from Foster Wheeler were actually texting me. Not sure that she actually texted me, but it was people from Foster Wheeler were texting me saying that they wanted to meet up for drinks or coffee or something. I don't think she was actually doing it. And then basically, so I kept receiving these texts about meeting up for a coffee or a drink or something. And and then she said, I can't do it. So then she said, she said, I can't go out with you. So she'd been texting me all along saying that she wanted to meet up with me for a coffee or something. And then she was saying, I can't go out with you. And so I had two phones at the time. So I rang her on my other phone, which she didn't know I had two phones. And she wouldn't pick up on my main phone. So I rang her on my other phone. And she said, I can't pick up, I can't go out with you. Which that really upset me a lot because obviously I was so lonely and isolated. And I needed a friend so badly because the friends that I had weren't supporting me. And then when she said she couldn't go out with me or go for a drink with me or anything, then I just let it go. And I just wondered if Foster Wheeler had put her up to it. Foster Wheeler had her put her up to sitting at this bus stop close to my house and put her up to saying that she had my number and stuff like that. I just wonder. And then so I was going to the McDonald's. At the time, I didn't have the internet capacity that I have now. So I was going to McDonald's, and I was coming back from going to McDonald's to use the internet and to eat. I mean, I had such a lonely, pathetic life. And I saw her at B&Q. I think it was B&Q. It was B&Q or Homebase. But that's closed down too. All those shops and everything have closed down. It was at this business park. And I was walking by B&Q or Homebase to try to get home. I don't remember what it is because all those buildings have closed down. And they've built apartments there, nice apartments that I can't afford to live in. And I saw her again, and she called my name, and I just told her, I said, well, I'm being harassed and everything. And it was during fasting, so it must have been during Ramadan or something. And I said, are you not fasting? And she says, no, I don't have to because I'm on my period. I don't have to. But by that time, I believed that she was part of the Foster Wheeler network. I don't know what she was doing, what she just happened to be doing in this parking lot. I don't know. I don't know what she just happened to be doing in this parking lot. So I just assumed that she was on Foster Wheeler's payroll to harass me and let me down. So I never saw her again. And maybe several years later, I saw her at a pound shop in the mall when this pound shop has also shut down. And I didn't really speak to her because what can you say? What can you say to somebody that does something like that? You know, what can you say? And I was with another friend who had BPD. So what do you say? So I didn't really speak to her. And then so I never phoned her again. I never tried to contact her again. And then so a couple of weeks ago, I was in the hospital. And I was walking down the hallway, walking down the corridor, trying to get to X-ray to deliver some documents. And then when I was walking around this corridor, I saw this woman. And she was a black woman because this who is black. She's from Africa. She's from an African country. And she was walking, but I was behind her. And she was walking several meters in front of me. And she was walking with a young girl. But this young girl was tall. This young girl was definitely a teenager by now, almost 20 by now. And this girl was taller than her. And she was wearing this dress. And I was thinking to myself, oh, I like that dress. I like that dress so much. I said, I wish I had that dress. I said, I'd like it to be shorter, but I like that dress so much. I wish I had that dress. And then, so I just let it go. And then she walked into X-ray. But then I didn't actually see her walk into X-ray because I was minding my own business. And then I walked into X-ray, and it was during the heat wave. And she was sitting there waiting for an X-ray appointment. And she was with this girl who's really tall, taller than her. And she called my name. And then I saw, Omu, hi, how are you? And she says, I need your number. I'll call you. So she started asking me these personal questions that she knew about. And so I gave her my number, and she said, I'll call you. Had she called me? No. And she said, well, I can see you're working, because I had a pass on. She said, I can see you're working, so I'll let you go. But that was such a strange, surreal experience, because I hadn't seen her in close to 20 years. I hadn't seen her in close to 20 years. Or maybe it was 20 years. No, well, I hadn't seen her in 10 years, 12 years, because I was harassed out of my job in 2014. So I hadn't seen her in 12 years, hadn't had any contact with her, because she said she couldn't go out with me, not even for a coffee. And then basically, so I had let it go. I just assumed that she was part of Foster Wheeler's harassment network. But she remembered me, and she says, I don't have your number. Can I have your number? So I gave her my number, and she said she'd ring, but she hasn't ring, but I'm okay with that. And then she asked me something personal about my personal life that I don't feel comfortable putting on YouTube, because some of my friends, you don't know who's going to watch this video, and a lot of people don't know about this personal problem. And so I just told her the answer, which is not what she wanted to hear, not what I wanted to say either. And then I had to go into X-ray to drop off this document. And then so whenever I left this X-ray department, she was gone. I haven't heard from her since. But that was such a surreal experience. I mean, why? I hadn't seen her in 14 years. I hadn't had any serious contact with her in close to 20 years, maybe more than 20 years. And for me to see someone from the back, I didn't know who it was, see her from the back saying, "Oh, I like that dress. I like that dress. You know, I'd like to have that dress." And it turned out to be Omu. So I don't know. I mean, the thing is that I do know that Foster Wheeler, they had a big IT department, and it's well known in the news that they had to pay all these fines for their corrupt business practices, namely hiring corrupt agents to bribe officials so they could buy contracts. But I'm sure they did a lot of other things in that regard as well. So I just assumed that she was part of Foster Wheeler's harassment network, because why would she just happen to be at the bus stop by my house? Why would she just happen to be at the parking lot of B&Q and Home Base? Why? So I just assumed that she was part of it, and so I never really contacted her again after that. And I do believe that Foster Wheeler had hacked into my phone and was sending me text messages, pretending to be her, because they did that with other people as well, not just her. And it was always the same, is because they knew I was lonely, they knew I was isolated, they knew I had no friends. And it was always the same as, "I want to see you." And then when I would finally agree to see these people, and it wasn't just one person, it was several people, they would say, "Sorry, I can't see you. Ha 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 ha." You know, so basically, Foster Wheeler knew I was isolated. Foster Wheeler knew I was lonely. Foster Wheeler knew I was desperate. And so I was trying to reach out to people just so I could be with some people. And they had hacked into my phone and were pretending to be people who had my number. And then whenever I would finally agree to see them, they would say, "I can't see you. Ha 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 ha." You know, and that was cruel. That was a very cruel thing to do. And I do think that Foster Wheeler was behind that. If it wasn't Foster Wheeler, it was the deep state. But the thing is that you're never going to know exactly who did it, because I was the victim, and nobody's come forward and told me exactly who was behind it. But because of the way that employees of Foster Wheeler were acting, and because of the nasty letters that I got from Foster Wheeler, which have since been removed from my apartment, I do think that Foster Wheeler was behind it. And if they would employ corrupt agents, they would certainly employ criminals to harass me. And I do believe that this was financially motivated, that they wanted to get me in such a despondent state that I would harm myself. And then if I'd harm myself, then they would get a payout. And I think it was probably a big payout, because they were going to a lot of extremes. They were going to very serious extremes to get me to harm myself. And so basically, I think that in addition to that, while all this was going on, and I wanted to make a separate video on this, which I haven't done yet, while I was being harassed out of my job, I didn't know who was behind the harassment. And since I didn't know who was behind the harassment, I thought, well, maybe the government was behind, the U.S. government and the U.K. government were behind the harassment, because I had been in the United States Air Force. And I haven't talked about that a lot, but I've had a lot of bad experiences in the military. and I met 2 really bad people in the military. I married them. So, when all this was going on, I thought, well, I'm going to write the CIA, the NSA, and the FBI, and also GCHQ, and MI5, and ask them for my records, what the records that they have on me. So I think GCHQ or MI5 said they're not giving anything out. They don't give out records, and that's that. And the FBI, they refused to give me anything. And it was either the CIA or the NSA. I don't remember exactly. And I had written them, and then they said that they weren't going to give me my papers, give me my records, but I could appeal it. So that's what I did. I appealed it to try to get my records. I appealed their decision not to give me my records that they held on me. And so basically, I appealed it, and I don't remember whether it was the CIA or the NSA. And the reason why, I'll tell you the reason why, is because one morning, and maybe I was still at Foster Wheeler, and I received a letter, and it was in an American envelope, because American paper and American envelopes are different sizes than English paper and English envelopes. So it was an American envelope, and it was on American paper, because American paper is a different size from English paper. And it didn't have any heading on it, no heading or anything. And it just said basically that they were not going to give me the file that they have on me. And the reason why is because when they typed my name into the database, my name actually falls within a classified file. So I am part of a classified project, and they won't tell me what this classified project is, because they won't give me my file of papers. But I am part of a classified project, and that's why they won't give me the file of papers. So I took these letters and I put them in my file of letters. That letter has gone missing, because I went back through and was looking for the letter again so I could show my CPN, that's Community Psychiatric Nurse, the letter that I received. That letter has been removed from my apartment, so I no longer have that letter. So now I can't tell you whether it was the CIA or the NSA, because I no longer have that letter. The only thing that I know is that I'm part of a classified project, but I don't even know what this classified project is, because they won't tell me. They won't give me my file. They won't tell me what they got on me. And so I don't even have the letter anymore. That letter, along with all of the letters that Foster Wheeler wrote me that were very nasty, has been removed from my apartment. And all of those letters have been replaced. Well, the Foster Wheeler letters anyway have been replaced with more moderately worded letters. So that just begs the question, was Foster Wheeler working with the deep state? I mean, did Foster Wheeler have some agreement with the deep state to terrorize employees? Was Foster Wheeler working with the deep state, or was Foster Wheeler working on its own? I know that Foster Wheeler had been protected for a really long time, and its criminal activities didn't come to light for a really long time until in 2014, I believe it was, Brazil had Operation Car Wash. And then when Brazil had Operation Car Wash, they kept these executives in prison. And the executives in the past had just bribed people to get out of prison, but this time they couldn't bribe people to get out of prison, and so they broke under pressure. and they started naming names. And then when they started naming names, then that's when it came out that Foster Wheeler was involved with buying contracts from Petrobras, which is the Brazilian oil company. And the Brazilian oil company is nationalized, so that means the employees of the Brazilian oil company are government officials. And then it also came out they had some corrupt business dealings in Nigeria, in India, and Malaysia, and you can look it up on the internet. You just do a search on Foster Wheeler global corruption, and you will come up with loads of articles about their corrupt business practices all over the world. But Foster Wheeler had been protected for a really long time. But for some reason, they were no longer protected. So Operation Car Wash uncovered some of this, and then whistleblowers came forward to the Serious Fraud Office, and probably the American equivalent of the Serious Fraud Office. And then they weren't protected anymore. But they had been protected for a really long time. So since I'm the victim, I don't know what all was done, but I don't know if Foster Wheeler had some agreement with the deep state to terrorize its employees and see how employees would act when they're being stalked, see how employees would act under pressure. So in addition to that, because of this business with Omu, which I haven't heard from her. She wanted my number. I gave her my number. I haven't heard from her. And again, another possibility is, in addition to me being harassed by Foster Wheeler and maybe even the deep state, probably even the deep state, it also begs the question of a simulation. Because I had this doctor appointment with this Dr. Omi, and it didn't go well. I complained about her. And then a day or two later, I saw Omu at the bus stop. And then, and 20 years later, I saw, which I didn't know it was Omi because she was in front of me. And I was just thinking, oh, I love that dress. I want that dress. That dress is so good. I'd like it if it was shorter. And just happened to be Omu. So are we in a simulation? Are we in a simulation? That's what a lot of people believe. A lot of people believe that we're in a simulation. And then you've got David Icke talking about the Archons. I know I'm definitely a victim of the Archons. So it's a lot to take in, but that's what I wanted to talk about in this video, how, I don't know, I'm the victim. I am the victim. And nobody has come to me and said to me, this is what we've done, blah, 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 blah. I know Foster Wheeler has done a lot. I know Foster Wheeler wanted to harm me desperately. They couldn't harm me themselves because a police investigation may have pointed the finger to them. So they were trying to make my life so miserable that I would harm myself. And then I was in the United States Air Force for 15 years. A lot of things went on in the United States Air Force. And so the U.S. government, it's either the CIA or the NSA, refused to give me my records, saying that I'm in a classified file. I'm classified. I'm in a classified file. So they won't give me my records. They won't tell me what classified project I'm in. They're just saying that my name is in a classified file. So I'm part of a classified project. So was all this some kind of MK Ultra type project to see what happens when you terrorize a person? See what happens when you ruin a person's life? Because my life definitely is ruined. My life is definitely over. And my body's falling apart. The stress of it all has given me diabetes. The stress of it all has ruined my eyes. The stress of it all has given me cancer. And it's becoming more and more apparent that the stress of it all, not only has it ruined my life, it's also ruined my body. I mean, my finger, for example. I keep putting all kinds of over-the-counter medications on my thumb and on my toe, and nothing helps. And NHS won't do anything about it now. I will have to go to the doctor and ask for some drugs to kill it. So that's what I wanted to talk about, and it's a little bit different, a little bit surreal. You know, we know Foster Wheeler was part of it. How much involvement did the deep state have? We know that Foster Wheeler was protected for a really long time, and for some reason they weren't protected anymore. So what happened to me? Was that some kind of MK Ultra project? Was that some kind of mind control project? Or are we living in a simulation? Are we living in a simulation? Are there beings outside of us controlling our behavior, controlling our lives, controlling our activities? So those are really important questions that I have, and I don't know the answers to these questions because I'm the victim. But maybe you can think about it and let me know what you think. Do you think that I'm part of a simulation? We know I was harassed out of my job by Foster Wheeler, but do you think the deep state had something to do with everything that happened to me? Do you think that the deep state had something to do with my interactions with Omu, which I haven't heard from her? She said she was going to phone me. I haven't heard from her, you know. And I'm not phoning her. I've definitely got her number somewhere, but I'm not phoning her. I'm busy. So I think that concludes this video. I've told you about this experience, and I've pondered on what it can be. And maybe you can think about it. And if you have any ideas, whether you think the deep state is involved, you think I'm part of an MK Ultra type of project, or whether you think I'm part of a simulation, let me know. So thank you for watching my video. If you like my video, please like and subscribe. Thank you so much for taking an interest in my very pathetic life.